Hi guys, welcome back to SwitchUp. A big thanks to our friend Dave Morrish, who's written this review for us. He was worried because he hadn't played the game back in the past, and we turned around to him and said, well, that's absolutely perfect, because it means it's going to be completely unbiased. A thanks also to Square Enix for the review copy. So let's get on with the review. Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is an action RPG which I remember being released on the GameCube. Although I didn't play it back then, I do remember it gaining some attention for being the first Final Fantasy game on the Nintendo console for quite some time, since the main series had been enjoying success over on the PlayStation. But time has moved on and this game has been remastered, but is it worth picking up today? Especially since now it's being released on a Nintendo console that has several Final Fantasy games already. Well, let's find out. In this world, there's an ever-present gas called miasma, and it can be deadly. Luckily, the towns and villages have crystals that protect them from this, but they need to be purified with myrrh in order to keep them working. It's the job of the heroes here to journey out to collect this and bring it home to the villages in order to keep them safe. As far as story goes, we all know that Final Fantasy titles are rich in this area, and I don't want to spoil too much. In terms of the gameplay and controls, the game's world is divided into sections. Each section is presented with its own map, showing the paths you can take, and the villages and levels are marked out on there for you. The levels play like a dungeon crawler, where you have a top-down view and need to fight through enemies to get to the end, encountering a boss, and finishing by finding the tree which can give you myrrh to fill into your crystal chalice. You need to find 3 trees before your chalice is full, and then you'll have saved that village. Now you begin the game by creating your own character. You choose from 4 different types and can customize their look. Each type does play differently, but the overall controls are essentially the same. You move around with the left stick, the A button is your attacks, which are primarily your sword. In the top left corner, just below your health meter, you'll notice it says attack or defense. This is your command wheel. Pressing the L and R will scroll through it to determine what the A button will do. Attack will swing your sword, defense will hold your shield out, and you can open up the menu by pressing Y to add some magical powers to your meter. You'll start with 4 slots available, but you can increase that over time. If you hold down A when your sword is out, you can charge up a focus attack. A circle will appear in front of you, and you can aim that where your character will do a jump slash for a more powerful move. The magic spells work the same way to shoot fire, thunder, and blizzard attacks, for example, with certain enemies being weaker to certain attacks. You can also fuse 2 of these together to create a more powerful magic spell, although that'll use up 2 of your slots. There's no limit to how often you can use the spells, so cast away to your heart's content. You'll begin each level with just the attack and defense options, but by defeating enemies and opening chests, you'll find the stones that let you use the magic spells, which will make your life a heck of a lot easier. There are also various items that you can get, such as food to let you heal, but once I discovered the cure spell, I found myself using that much more, so health pickups became a touch more irrelevant. The most important item, however, is the crystal chalice. You need to carry it around with you at all times. An area marked out as a circle surrounds it, and you need to stay within that circle, otherwise your health begins to drain. If you carry the chalice, you move slower and can't use your attacks. Luckily though, you have a Moogle named Mog that accompanies you, and he can carry the chalice for you. This works well for the most part, but there are a few annoyances here. Firstly, there are times where he can get stuck behind something or just be moving slower than you, so you'll find yourself outside of the circle. Secondly, he gets tired and will eventually ask if you can carry it for a while. So you then carry it for a bit before he tells you he's okay to take it again. It just seems like a completely pointless delay. Combat in this game is very simplistic to get into, as it's just 1 button that gets used for the attacks. It can be a bit button bashy here, but I found the best strategy was to just hit them a few times, then step away from them before they attack, then go forward and hit them some more. Rinse and repeat. This was also the case for boss fights. They had their unique attacks which kept things a little more interesting, but I found myself on every single boss, like with every single enemy, just hitting them, running away, using the cure spell if they got a hit on me, then just keep that going until I won. The combat would have been more interesting if there was a way to dodge, or you could use your shield on a separate button, but as it is, it can be a bit tedious after a while. The spells and focus attacks take a few seconds to charge, which means that enemies can get a hit on you in that time, but if you move far away enough, it won't really be an issue. Even when you die, you can continue from the start of the level or the last area you loaded, and all the enemies you already killed stay dead, which does take away a lot of pressure from the dying, except for boss battles where it all resets. To be able to progress to a new section of the map, you'll find what's called streams of miasma. Each one will be labelled with one of the 4 elements, and you'll need your chalice to contain the same element in order to be able to pass through. Thankfully, you'll find hotspots in the levels that let you change it to the correct element in order to cross the streams. I'm guessing the developers haven't ever seen Ghostbusters. You should never, ever cross the streams. When encountering a village, you can find shops and blacksmiths to buy items or get better weapons and armor. And at the end of each level, you get to choose an artifact that can boost one of your stats too. There's an online co-op in this game, which I sadly was unable to connect with anyone during my time of review. It feels like a missed opportunity to have not added a local multiplayer, as it would have fit nicely here. This remaster could have managed local co-op in a simpler way. Having said all of that, I am aware that in co-op, the game is probably going to be more enjoyable, but it's still a very simplistic experience. The combat's too simple to stay interesting for too long, but is fun in very short bursts. It's just a shame there isn't more variety in your moves, especially since there's several buttons, such as the triggers, that go unused. I did have fun playing through the levels, but the more I played, the less exciting it became, as I found myself just doing the same things over and over again. For me, gameplay scores 12 out of 20, and the controls are basic, with many buttons not being used at all, and it just feels like a bit of a missed opportunity. Controls also score 12 out of 20. Onto visuals and performance then. This is a remaster of a GameCube game, and it certainly shows. The character models look like they are from that era, although it has been redone in HD. Even though I didn't play the game back in the day, I did feel a bit of nostalgia looking at it, as I fondly remembered other games from that era. Obviously, a GameCube game wouldn't look this good, but they've done a reasonable job in making it look okay. Not exactly what a GameCube game looks like, but we remember them looking. Each level comes with its own theme, such as a mushroom forest, fire mine, or castle courtyard, which makes them stand out and become memorable. I found the enemies and bosses to have very good and varied designs. I really liked how the map screen was displayed, and then there's the music. The music in this game matches it perfectly. It's enjoyable but quite repetitive, but in that hum-along kind of way. You'll be hearing different songs in different stages that certainly match the tone of the area. You won't be playing for too long before you hear it looping back to the beginning and starting over. I also like how each level begins with a narrative giving some backstory to the area. It's a nice bit of world building. The performances were good, and I didn't find anyone too annoying, which can sometimes be an issue in fantasy games. There is one thing that does bother me. Can any Final Fantasy fans please tell me why the Moogles keep saying Capo at the end of each sentence? The camera is placed above you and can't be adjusted, so navigating the levels can sometimes be tricky unless you use the minimap at the top, such as this path here, where this slope I'm supposed to go up looks like a wall from this angle. Overall, the game is very well presented though. Anyone looking at this, not knowing it's a remaster of an older game, might not take to them, but they have done a great job at bringing a GameCube title to the modern era and cleaning it up while still retaining its original charm and style, so as not to lose its identity. Performance in both docked and handheld was fine. I had no issues in this regard. Graphics for me scores 16 out of 20, while the sound and audio scores 16 out of 20. Now the game sells on the eShop for £24.99. I can't actually see any other regions, but hopefully you'll see them in the video. This is a remaster of a game that cost £40 on the GameCube, and when you consider some of the other remasters we've seen, especially from Nintendo, that sell at full retail price, £24.99 isn't a bad asking price. There are additional features too that the original didn't have, such as a mimic system that allows you to take on the appearance of people you meet, some extra hard dungeons, and of course the online multiplayer, which does require a Nintendo Switch Online membership. The online is also cross-platform, so you can connect with people no matter what system they're on, even on their phone. For a solo player, you will probably find this fun in short bursts, only taking just one level at a time to prevent it from getting too repetitive. And it's such a shame there's no local co-op. This would have undoubtedly extended the lifespan of the title, particularly in trying out the different character types too, and experimenting together what teams work best. It isn't a high price point for a remaster of what used to be a full retail game for someone that wants that nostalgic kick, but for others, it's still quite a high price in general for the value and the gameplay being offered. It's just a bit too basic and repetitive. Value for me scores 12 out of 20.
Hail, fellow caravaner!
In conclusion then, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles brought the series back to a Nintendo console, and now it's back with HD visuals, new voice acting, online play and a few other extras. The locations, characters and the world in general is a nice place to be back in, with varied levels and great enemy designs and a simple premise that works well enough to make you want to keep going. Unfortunately, the gameplay hasn't stood the test of time, and it's just a bit too repetitive for me. For a newcomer playing in 2020, perhaps a little too tedious, without many of the quality of life and variety options we're so used to in modern RPGs. Overall, it scores a SwitchUp score of 68%. A big thanks to Dave for the review. I think I tend to agree with this. I played a bit of the title on my Switch and myself hadn't played it back in the day. I can see how players who played it before and have that nostalgic connection are going to enjoy it regardless, and it is nice they added a few quality of life features, but yeah, I tend to agree. It's just a touch too repetitive for my liking. Let me know down in the comments if you'll be picking this one up for old time's sake, and if you think Square have done a good job. A big thanks to our patrons who support the channel each and every month, and as always, all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers guys, see ya!